Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. The early morning fog clung to the streets of Millfield, shrouding the town in a ghostly embrace. It was a seemingly ordinary Wednesday, the type of day when secrets lingered just beneath the surface, a calm facade, veiling a growing undercurrent of dread. The only reminder of the season's chill was the occasional crackle of leaves, brittle underfoot, hinting at the inevitable transition from autumn to winter. There was something unsettling about the stillness, as if the town itself was holding its breath, waiting for the storm that lay on the horizon. On Maple Street, the low hum of a distant train echoed like a haunting refrain, intertwining with the rustling branches. Inside an unassuming bungalow, the walls held a tapestry of family photographs, smiling faces frozen in time, unaware of the darkness that swirled outside. It was in this home that 14-year-old Lily Parker would cease to exist as she had known it. Her laughter, once full of life, would soon fade into haunting echoes. As the clock struck 8, Lily was last seen by her mother as she headed toward the bus stop for school. A fleeting wave, an innocent goodbye, the kind of mundane routine that had been repeated countless times. But that ordinary morning would spiral into an extraordinary investigation. One that would reveal Millfield's secrets, its hidden darkness, and its capacity for unthinkable horror. In a town where everyone knew each other, no one could have anticipated the shadow that would cast itself over them, changing the course of their lives forever. The victim. Lily Parker was the type of girl who could light up a room with her kindness. At 14, she had a vibrant spirit that drew people to her, a delicate balance of mischief and earnestness. Her brown hair, often tangled from playground adventures, framed a face adorned with freckles that danced across her cheek. She was the epitome of youthful innocence, a typical teen navigating the complexities of school, friendships, and burgeoning dreams of the future. Yet beneath her cheerful exterior lay a myriad of emotions that only her closest friends understood. Lily was an artist at heart, capturing her thoughts in bursts of creativity, sketches that depicted realms of wonder, where magic reigned and the impossible was merely a brushstroke away. Her bedroom felt like a sanctuary, walls plastered with her artwork, each piece telling a story that words could never fully express. On that fateful morning, Lily was excited to present her latest creation at school, a vibrant mural that entwined themes of friendship and adventure. She anticipated the admiration of her peers, the thrill of sharing a piece of her soul with those who mattered most. Friends often described her as a dreamer, yet her feet remained planted firmly on the ground. But beneath the paintings and laughter was a young girl grappling with insecurities surrounding her changing body and teenage anxieties, a tempest that many her age faced. The pressures of adolescence could feel like a weight too heavy to bear. Little did she know, the carefree days of laughter would soon become a distant memory, overshadowed by a chilling reality that lurked just around the corner. The crime scene. The sun had barely risen when word spread through Millfield like wildfire. A missing girl. Panic quickly infiltrated the community, threading its way into whispered conversations at the local coffee shop and anxious gatherings on front porches. By midday, search parties had formed, a collective determination igniting among neighbors who traveled the familiar streets with a singular purpose: to find Lily. A few hours later, desperation had led them to a stretch of wooded area on the outskirts of town, a space notorious for overgrown trails and thick underbrush that obscured the beauty beyond. As volunteers fanned out, a chill hung in the air, the weight of uncertainty thickening with each passing moment. It wasn't long before the clarity of tragedy pierced this somber veil. The first shout broke the tense, quiet, and anguished voice of a volunteer who had strayed off the designated path. The atmosphere shifted instantly. What began as quiet desperation escalated into a frantic urgency as authorities rushed to the scene. They had discovered Lily's backpack, the vibrant strap contrasting starkly against the muted browns and greens of the forest. A search perimeter was established, officers working methodically to uncover any clue. As the hours stretched into twilight, the search turned grim. The woods once a haven for childhood adventures now echoed with dread as investigators combed every inch with unyielding precision. Eventually, they uncovered a small clearing, and there in the fading light, the air seemed to tremble with an unspoken horror. The scene that unfolded was incomprehensible, a haunting realization that had blighted the community. The search for Lily Parker had taken a dangerous twist, morphing from a hopeful quest into a tragic nightmare. The early investigation. As darkness settled over Millfield, the once vibrant town was suffocated by an oppressive silence. The rural landscape, dotted with quaint homes and familiar landmarks, took on a disquieting aura. News vans arrived, their cameras capturing the essence of a community gripped by confusion and despair. Tensions surged as investigators began their work, sifting through the wreckage of shattered hope. The police quickly set up a command center at the community center, a place typically filled with laughter and local gatherings, now transformed into a hive of activity. Detectives pored over evidence collected from the crime scene. Under the sterile glare of fluorescent lights, their team analyzed Lily's backpack, gathering fragments of her life snacks left half-eaten. A sketchbook filled with creative music. Each item served as a painful reminder of the girl who had vanished too soon, fueling their resolve. Detective Mark Henderson, a seasoned investigator with creased lines etched around his eyes, led the early inquiry. He understood how crucial the first hours of an investigation were. Every detail counted. With his team, he reviewed security footage from a camera hidden outside a nearby convenience store. Though hopeful, their search unveiled nothing Lily hadn't passed by as expected. The search turned inward, sifting through conversations and whispers, keen to uncover any threads that could lead them to her. Family interviews commenced that evening, with Lily's parents drawn into the center of suspicion rather than support. Struggling to contain their grief, they described a typical diurnal behavioral changes. No unusual friend. They were walking an emotional tightrope, wishing to be seen as concerned parents, yet fearful of the darker implications creeping around the edges of their narrative. A town that once thrived on familiarity now felt layered with shadows who among them could turn on a child. The dead ends. Days turned into weeks, and the vibrant spirit of Millfield seemed to dim. The once bustling streets felt stagnant, the shadows of anxiety draping over storefronts and homes. As the search for Lily Parker stretched on, hope began to wane, replaced by an unsettling reality itch. Lead they pursued seemed to dissolve into an empty void, and the once promising investigation began to reveal its deepest frustration. Detective Henderson's team hunched over cases and notes, eyes heavy with fatigue. They sifted through mountains of tips provided by well-meaning townsfolk. Every small lead, every promising sighting of a girl resembling Lily, turned out to be hollow. Security cameras monitored the town's main intersection, yet each frame was painfully uneventful. Identification checks yielded no new information. There were no signs of her in neighboring towns or cities. In the midst of it all, the town spiraled, each resident becoming an unspoken suspect. Gossip roared, swirling tales of sightings and speculative theories fueling paranoia. Some accused outsiders. Others pointed fingers at the teenagers who had once frequented the same spaces as Lily. It became a dance of blame and denial. The search for truth splintered and gnawed at the fragile social fabric of Millfield. Frustration mounted as the detectives struggled to grasp the enormity of vanished youth. Each meeting with Lily's family left Henderson grappling with an emotional weight he couldn't shake. The pain mirrored in their gazes haunted him, elongating the hours spent attempting to piece together a puzzle that had become a painful riddle. The realization that the search for Lily would not yield answers anytime soon settled heavily within Hema, creeping dread that perhaps they were racing against time. Lulu, sight of once illuminated their path. A break in the case. As days turned into weeks in the search for Lily Parker, a sense of dread settled in like the fog that enveloped Millfield each morning. Just when it seemed the investigation had reached a wall, fate took an unexpected turn. One chilly afternoon, a call from an unexpected source would push the investigation into a new direction. The call came from a local farmer named George, who had ventured into his fields to collect fallen apples. It was here, amongst the twisted roots of an oak tree, that he stumbled upon something he couldn't ignore: a silver bracelet. Delicate and engraved with the initials LP, George had recognized it immediately as belonging to the girl. Everyone in it, Millfield had been searching for. He reported the find, his voice trembling with the gravity of his discovery. Detective Henderson arrived with his team, the air heavy with a mix of dread and anticipation. They methodically examined the area where the bracelet was found, setting up a perimeter as they scoured the ground for any additional clues. The search revealed nothing else, yet the presence of the bracelet sent jolts of renewed energy through the investigation. This tangible evidence reignited interest in Lily's case, drawing more volunteers to search the surrounding fields and woods. This crucial find prompted a wave of forensic activity. The bracelet was sent for analysis in hopes of recovering trace DNA or other evidence. Detective Henderson, fueled by a rejuvenated sense of purpose, began revisiting previous interviews with intent. He retraced family statements more carefully, reflecting on all the individuals who had crossed paths with Lily. The community, once consumed by despair, now hung on to this shred of hope, their collective spirit rekindled, eager to see where the breakthrough may lead. The shadows that had enveloped Millfield began to dissipate, rekindling the hope that Lily may still be found. The suspect. As hope pulsed back into the veins of Millfield, the discovery of Lily's bracelet brought with it a whirlwind of suspicion. Among those scrutinized was Frank Lane, a reserved but peculiar man who had lived on the edge of town for years. He was often seen lurking around neighborhood gatherings, seemingly engaged but perpetually on the outskirts. Rumors about Frank had circulated for quite some time. Stories of odd behavior whispered behind closed doors and eccentricity that didn't sit well with the town's residents. Detective Henderson, with the renewed focus stemming from the bracelet find, took a closer look at Frank's background. It wasn't long before they uncovered that Frank had a history of unsettling encounters with local children, a series of complaints that had gone largely ignored. They were small things, awkward exchanges, and increased watchfulness that developed into neighborhood gossip. Yet, the insinuations were enough to reopen the investigation into his activities, scrutinizing his movements during the week of Lily's disappearance. As authorities approached him for questioning, Frank's demeanor shifted. He was initially compliant, appearing cooperative, but his eyes often darted, betraying a tension that electrified the room. He claimed to have been home alone on the night Lily disappeared. Henderson noted how evasively Frank answered questions, providing vague details that didn't blend into the timeline of events. The investigator pressed deeper, intuitively sensing the fraying edges of Frank's story. As the questioning continued, Henderson laid out the implications of the bracelet discovery, hoping to elicit a reaction. Frank's face paled momentarily, his fingers twitching lightly as he shifted in his seat. Simply the mention of the bracelet seemed to awaken a fear he could not conceal. Inspector Henderson realized they were onto something. Their instincts began to sharpen as they struggled to bridge the gap between suspicion and evidence. The pieces of the puzzle were slowly molding together, but would there be enough to uncover the unsettling truth that lay beneath the surface? The trial. Months had passed since Lily Parker's disappearance, and the small town of Millfield had been transformed into a crucible of grief and anger. The events had left emotional scars on its residents. And now, as the community gathered in the courthouse, anticipation tainted the atmosphere with an undercurrent of unease. The trial was about to commence against Frank Lane, charged in connection with Lily's tragic fate. Inside the courtroom, the sunlight filtered through stained glass, casting muted patterns that danced across the somber witnesses. Judge Richmond presided over proceedings with a stern demeanor, aware of the heavy weight of responsibility that lay on his shoulders. Families sat rigid in their seats, the air thick with a tension that clung to the fabric of the room. Frank's defense team argued vehemently, painting him as an easy scapegoat for a community desperate for resolution. Their words dripped with cynicism, intending to shatter the fragile web of evidence woven around him. Conversely, the prosecution presented a compelling narrative, retracing the path of the investigation that had led them to Frank Dotgate. Leading the case was prosecutor Sarah Collins, whose impassioned pleas echoed as she meticulously articulated every detail from the discovery of Lily's bracelet to the unsettling patterns in Frank's behavior. Witnesses recounted the days leading up to Lily's disappearance, describing moments that tinged their memories with fear, casting shadows on an otherwise idyllic community. The courtroom embodied a whirlwind of emotions as testimonies unfolded. Each statement peeled back layers of truth while tethering the audience to the whirlwind of uncertainty that surrounded the case. The echoing cries of Lily's parents resonated within the hollowed walls, demanding justice for their lost child. With every word spoken, it became evident that this trial was not only about Frank Lane, was a reckoning for a community struggling to reclaim its innocence. As the gavel prepared to fall on the deliberations, the verdict loomed large. A significant turning point awaited that would shape Millfield's future forever. The aftermath. The verdict reverberated through the small town of Millfield like a resonant bell, tolling a note of closure. Yet it did little to quiet the storm within the hearts of its residents. Frank Lane was found guilty on charges related to the abduction and murder of 14-year-old Lily Parker. A conclusion that, while expected, brought little solace to a grieving community. The courtroom erupted in a subdued mix of relief and sorrow. tears mingling with resolved anger as Lily's parents embraced each other. A poignant display of both loss and the inevitability of justice. In the weeks following the trial, the atmosphere within Millfield shifted from grief to a communal yearning for healing. The town, still marked by a deep collective trauma, oscillated between remembrance of the vibrant girl they lost and a desperate need to move forward. The memorials that sprang up in honor of Lily served as a balm for fractured hearts. Yet they also stirred haunted memories in the corners of familiar streets. Schoolyards once filled with laughter echoed with silence where joy had thrived, now shadowed by the incident that darkened their youth. Lily's art teacher organized an art exhibit showcasing her remarkable talent and the creativity that had brightened so many lives. It became a cathartic moment for the town. Local artists contributed pieces, each canvas capturing fragmented reflections of loss and resilience, while community members shared stories of how Lily had touched their lives. Amid the sorrow, hope began to seep into the foundations of Millfield. Connections deepened as shared experiences knit the residents closer together. Yet, a lingering tension remained. Conflicts emerged within the community, as some echoed sentiments of suspicion for it. They knew a predator walked among them in days gone by, hidden in plain sight. Conversations turned towards safety measures, the importance of open dialogue with children, and fostering vigilance among families. The emotional scars left by Lily's tragic story, now woven into the fabric of Millfield, would serve as stark reminders long after the courtroom faded into memory. But hope glimmered faintly. A promise of resilience pushed forth by a community determined to ensure that Lily's memory would never fade into obscurity. Reflection. Months had now unfolded since Lily Parker's story became a heart-wrenching narrative woven into the essence of Millfield. The town had begun a slow, arduous journey of healing. Yet the pain of loss still sat heavily upon its residents. As her family continued to navigate their grief, they found strength in advocating for missing persons. Lily's case prompted them to speak up, raise awareness, and ensure that the voices of other missing children and their families could not be ignored. In quiet moments, those who knew Lily reflected on her vibrant laugh and infectious enthusiasm for life. Recurring memories washed over them, rendering her absence palpable in their everyday routines. Friends would often gather in the parks where they used to play, sharing stories, laughter tinged with heartbreak, creating an intimate space for happiness while honoring their lost companion. The town, cognizant of the lingering shadows, made efforts to strengthen community bonds. Neighbors organized workshops on personal safety and outreach programs for youth, ensuring that no child felt alone in the world. Through these initiatives, the spirit of togetherness began to transform Millfield, rekindling a sense of safety that had once seemed lost. Each initiative stood as an homage to Lily. Every candle lit in her honor was a testament to the resilience of a community determined to never forget. As seasons changed, so did the landscape of Millfield. The scars from sorrow remained etched in the hearts of its people, but hand in hand, they faced a new morning with a flicker of hope. The threads of Lily's story remained woven into their lives, an enduring narrative that urged them to cherish every moment, to connect deeply, and to honor those who could not continue their journeys